The Podcasting Dead is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Make sure to subscribe for more podcasts. And while you're at it, drop us a like. If you want to help support the channel and have access to extra content, secret contests, and more, make sure to search for us on Patreon. Patreon.com/thepodcastingdead.
It's time to get weird on a Wednesday. I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
And we're the Podcasting Dead. The intro pretty much told you everything you needed to know. But again, let me just reinforce. Check out our channel if you enjoy podcasts. We cover everything from the paranormal to the conspiracies to The Walking Dead and kind of everything in between. Make sure to hit that like button. It helps us out a ton. And without further ado, JP, what is the topic of today's discussion? I know we got paranormal the last one or two, so now we're kind of getting back into conspiracies.
Yeah, man. Well, I've just been looking more and more about, possible globalist agendas post-COVID because, a lot of people out there think that the whole reason for the release of the virus, and there is so much more and more evidence, that's just a whole nother podcast, that this was a bioengineered virus released or escaped by accident. I think released for the means for the reason of global domination by global elites, and it's getting scary out here, man.
So that's something you think? I mean, you believe that?
Oh, without a doubt, man. And I'll reference people. The Truth Factory, Truth Cat, did some really good videos on the origin of the virus, but not. And then you get to looking, or at least I've been looking at this cat from, and not a real cat like on Truth Factory, but this guy. Klaus Schwab, he's the founder of the World Economic Forum, and you can go to their website, their YouTube channel. He's straight up just like, look, the global economy needs a great reset, is what he calls it. Like, here's a quote from him, and we got to define some terms here shortly. Every country from the United States to China must participate, in every industry from oil and gas to tech must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism. And I'm not trying to get into capitalism versus socialism versus because I don't know enough about any of them, but he's basically saying, man, there needs to be a small, unelected group of people dictating world economics, just by and large, 100%.
So what's the plan to get the world economy to get so crapped out from all of the COVID mess to just basically the first person that steps up with a plan, the world will follow in unison? Yeah,
it's slash and burn economics. They're going to burn it down and then replace it with a system that they're absolutely in control of.
And so, and then this is so you said you've got who is this guy again?
His name is Klaus Schwab. He's an old dude. He's kind of a Dr. Evil-looking mofo. And he's saying, like, he's calling this, like, the fourth industrial revolution. And they're going far beyond economics. He's saying it's going to affect the very essence of our human experience. And it's so, like, he has this just outline. And the outline, man, they're using terminology that's so broad, and they don't explain it. They don't go into talking about social reengineering, talking about new forms of technology to enforce these mandates, and they don't define anything. They're basically just like, look, things are going to go to shit, but trust us, we're going to put a plan in place to control everything for your betterment.
So what's his nationality? Is this an American guy? I mean, the name suggests he's European. But...
Oh yeah, he is. He's a real piece of work that much time. But you listen to his videos, he sounds like a evil mastermind. Oh, Justin, you have to trust me with your banking account and with your job. And soon all the media will be controlled by the state. So there will be no need for privately owned radio. And you will do what we say.
All right, so I'm just going to speculate that he started off kind of German sounding and then morphed into like a Russian Stalin era communist.
No, Justin, you will do as we tell you to do. You will not be putting music on the radio. You will be preaching our propaganda.
Now he's starting to sound like Borat.
No. No, Justin, you have it all wrong.
And so this guy, I mean, who is he again? Like, as far as not name, but like, who is he in the world? What does he do?
He's the founder of the World Economic Forum, which is just a big boys club of muckety mucks, and they're trying to do this sinister stuff. And they have like it's kind of like the the G4 summit. You know, they get all these people and. The president actually, spoke at the last World Economic Forum because, he obviously is going up against these people. And I also, always just as an international businessman has always kind of had his finger on the pulse when it comes to that stuff. You have to. But the scariest thing, man, is this dude is just straight up and he says we have to introduce elements of Marxism in order because capitalism doesn't work. So as far as economics go, we got to insert Marxism, and it just that's it's not a good thing. We're basically looking at like a worldwide Soviet Union type economic system.
So does this play into the one world government conspiracies that have been going on for? I mean, those conspiracies, I remember hearing about those as like a teenager. I mean, it's been speculated on for many years that there's some convoluted plan to get us all into a one world government. I mean, is this part of that plan, or is this just some, where does that fit into that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's the one world government. They're gonna not just control the who's in charge and all this stuff, but yeah, economics. I mean, they're gonna be over everything.
But I mean, do these plans connect? I mean, because we've heard of the Rothschilds and all these other people that were supposedly involved in this plot to basically strip away countries and just make it a one world government. I mean, is this part of that, or is this just someone else who wants to control the world?
No, it's all connected. These elites, the people at the highest echelons of society, they're doing this. And I mean, you're talking about no more borders, no more language, no more culture. I mean, they'll dictate everything.
So you're down to they're going to force us all to speak one language?
Yeah, that too. And like I said, a lot of it will be start with the technological revolution. I mean, you're talking about being implanted with not just chips to keep up with things like vaccinations, medical records, your social score, like they're doing in China.
Yeah, that's very Black Mirror-ish, man. If you've never watched Black Mirror, you should go find it on Netflix. And there's an episode where everyone basically rates everybody. I mean, like, this determines every aspect of your life. Like mortgage rates, it determines what restaurants you can and can't eat in. If it determines like hospital bills. Basically, if you're a crappy person, if people rate you as not being a good person, then the rest of the world shuns you based on your ratings. And it's just like, of course, Black Mirror is very much like the Twilight Zone, but with technology.
Yes.
And, or at least that's always the way I've interpreted it. But like on this, I don't know what it is, but basically I guess there has to be a chip or something in you. But when you approach someone, even passing in the street, if JP was to bump into me and keep walking, I could pull up my phone and it would show me exactly who he is, and I could give him like a 1 out of 4 or 5 star, by whichever ones it is, rating. And eventually, and so China is actually implementing stuff like that, right?
Yeah. The left and right, man, it's only getting worse.
And that's kind of scary. I mean, people, though, I think that's what a lot of folks don't realize is the term slippery slope is very applicable to things like that. I mean, that's starting down. I mean, there was an episode of the Orville like that, right?
Yeah,
where everyone voted, like rated you, and which if you haven't watched the Orville, you should. It's amazing, but. There's an episode where they go onto this planet and everybody rates everybody, and it's down to like somebody's supposed to be executed, and everybody is live streaming the execution and voting, and if the votes aren't high enough to keep them alive, then they'll kill them. And I mean, it's just that all sounds so far fetched. But then again, how many times have we watched something go from the sci-fi screen to our reality?
Yeah, man, and that's a lot of times that's a big part of it. Social engineering, introduce a concept as fiction, be it in a novel or a show or whatever, and it just warms us up to the idea. So then when, UFOs are coming out the sky or what have you, we're adjusted to that idea of it.
Now, how much of this do you believe?
Well, like I said, man, this is their agenda. Like I said, I mean, this isn't a conspiracy. This is what they're laying out, and I'm not saying that there's not people that are going to fight it, and I'm not saying it's 100% going to come to fruition, but I mean, the World Economic Forum is a real thing, and this is what they're laying out, man. This is their agenda, is a one world economic system where, as I said, unelected officials are just lording over everything that happens in business, and it's going to bleed into every facet of life.
We've seen these types of structures in movies. I mean, you've got Equilibrium and tons of movies and shows out there with this idea of because in Equilibrium, it was like you had to take your happy pills every day, and which I don't know if they were pills. I think it was like an injection, but which if you haven't seen Equilibrium, you should go back and watch it. It's a Christian Bale flick. It is awesome. Great action, cool story. It's awesome. But in that you have to take your happy shot, and you have the government. They don't allow what is it? I mean, it's just almost like a Fahrenheit. What was it? Fahrenheit 451.
Yes.
Where they're burning all the books and everything.
Burning the books, yeah.
I mean, all of that sounds very, you'll have people all the time talking about how that's a story. It'll never, but I mean, if you look around, and keep in mind that I don't necessarily believe any of these conspiracies that we cover. Just put that out there right now. JP believes some of them. I try to stay open-minded to them. I'm not saying I believe them, but I try to keep an open mind enough to listen to what JP has to say before, immediately dismissing something, which is very bizarre. I'm seeing a lot of people that are so-called progressives on my Facebook and very forward-thinking people that just shut down everything, you know what I mean? Very following whatever the media tells them, and that is it. And, I mean, that's on both sides. I mean, I say progressive, but I don't mean that in a political sense. I mean, they consider themselves very forward-thinking people, but the second you mention that there could be a possibility of social conditioning and things like that, they just tell you you're crazy. And that's kind of how I feel. We've been also – it's like conditioning – against conditioning. It's like we've been conditioned to shut stuff like that down as crazy talk. But in the movies, it's always that crazy bastard that was right all along. You know what I mean?
Well, there's been people, on the fringes of these upper echelons of society, like George Orwell, Aldous Huxley, and there are certain truth tellers that are putting it into works of fiction to try to warn us, try to foretell us of what's coming.
Do you think that's what it was? It wasn't just a story. It was a warning for what was to come?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man.
You have to really be devoted to these ideas, though, because a lot of these ideas, I mean, you mentioned Orwell. I mean, how long ago was that written? I mean, so if people were putting these plans in motion since, the turn of the century back in, the 1900s, I mean, it was a plan they put into motion that they would never see through.
Yeah.
Do you think everything is going according to plan, or do you think it's a plan, but they have to wait for the right opportunities?
No, I mean, they set the wheels in motion, hundreds of years ago in some case with this stuff. No, they absolutely have. This is a long game they're playing, and now certain things, now that technology is caught up, things are starting to move, man, and we might. A year from now, you think the world's different right now than it was a year ago. A year from now, man, it could.
I've heard whispers of the coin shortage being a part of this.
Yeah, moving us towards the cashless society.
Right, getting us just to straight digital, which sucks ass because I had, pulled out, which don't rob my house. I have it in a very heavy safe. You won't be able to get it. But I had gotten to the point because my grandfather didn't keep a lot of money in the bank. I mean, he kept a lot of cash on him because he didn't trust that the bank wouldn't just lose it in the electric, whatever. I mean, he was very old school. And I mean, I always was of the mindset. I kept most of my money in the bank, but I always tried to pull out an amount in case there ever was a power grid failure. Just something to where electronics were not usable and I was not able to purchase anything with a debit card so that I would have some cash in hand until things got back to normal. But now it's just getting to the point where it's it definitely seems like that's a step towards encouraging a cashless society.
Yeah, man, and I'm not against cryptocurrency. I love stuff like Cash App. It's so convenient,
But you like having the choice. If you want to pay for something in cash, or you want to pull your money out the bank and hold on to it. Well, I mean, even going back, all right, when I bought a house a few years ago, I remember, because when you buy a house, buying a house is the biggest pain in the ass in the world. And my best friend is a real estate agent, and he did an amazing job of keeping it as pain in the assless as it could be. But with that said, it is still just a pain in the ass process. It's stupid how much you have to do just to get a house. And it's constantly like, oh, we need money for this. And, oh, by the way, we need money for this. And, oh, you need to pay this fee. And it just sucked. And it's like, I remember, him or either the mortgage company reaching out going, we need another $1,500. And, I mean, they had pretty much wiped out my bank account at this point. I mean, you're talking a lot of money all at once. I had to pay to get an inspector. I had to pay to get it appraised. I mean, it just was a lot of BS with it. So it's like, I tell them, I'm like, well, I have that in cash. I can bring that by. And she's like, well, due to the Bush-era Patriot Act.
Right.
We're not allowed to accept mattress money is what they call it. And I'm like, but it's money. Like, well, it's to keep terrorists, because terrorists buy property with, okay, but Jesus Christ, you can't look back at my record? I mean, I can understand it being a case-by-case basis. Let's check his criminal background. Where's he from? What kind of life is he led on paper? Blah, 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 blah. But, I mean, I was basically, this is how stupid it was. I had to give the money to someone, get them to write me a check, which I then deposited to my bank account, and then was pretty much told I had to lie about it. And it was so, the fact that they have to know where all of your money comes from, your money that you work for, to me, it just was absurd. I could understand, and for the extreme patriots out there, before you light up the comment section, I completely understand the thought process behind tracing the money to know where it all came from. But at the end of the day, it's my money.
Exactly.
And I'm basically being told I'm not allowed to store and use cash. It has to all be done through electronics. And I remember thinking, and I mean, the more you think about it, now whether it's conspiracy or it's just convenience, I don't know. But I definitely can agree that it seems like they definitely want to move us towards a cashless society.
Yeah, that's why it's easier to track our transactions, to control the cash.
They can cut you off.
Cut you off.
Imagine that, and I mean, I know the thought process would be like, well, if there's a criminal on the run, we can just cut off their cash, cut off their funds, and they won't be able to survive. And it's like, but again, I go back to that word, or those words, slippery slope. I mean, you got to understand that the basis of what we were founded on was freedom from government control in that way. And I mean, just as the generations have gone, man, we've just slipped right back into the tight fist of the government.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, I'm not some crazy conspiracy guy. I don't know that I believe any of the conspiracies we discuss here on the show, but I'm willing to listen to them. But with that said, I mean, it's as long as as long as man walks this planet, there's always going to be someone who wants complete control. It's been that way from the beginning, and it will be that way to the end.
Well, this one is coming at you. It's coming at you hard. It's coming at you fast, and pretty soon, he's going to say, "Oh, Justin, you haven't taken your vaccinations. We must update your chip, and if you don't have your chip, we cut off your cash flow. You will not be able to use any of your digital currency."
Oh, yeah. Well, it's just like, what is it? I mean, they recently got rid of this, but it's like you could have court fees unrelated to driving. I mean, it could be, I don't know, a misdemeanor marijuana charge, whatever. But if you didn't pay these, then they would suspend your license.
Exactly.
And I remember as a teenager thinking, because mine got suspended one time because of that. Like it was some stupid, I mean, it wasn't nothing major. Like I had a little misdemeanor issue, and I thought I had paid everything, and apparently I owed them like a little bit more money, and I get pulled over and my license is suspended, which luckily the officer was, he understood. And I was like, man, but still, and I just remember thinking then they can cut your license for that. That's a mob mentality right there. And I don't mean mob mentality as in like riots or anything. I mean like mafia mentality. Exactly. Like, oh, you don't pay us our money, you don't drive. So like you said, hey, we want you to get vaccinated or get this chip. Well, I don't want to. Oh, well, that's a shame. We're going to have to cut your funds until you comply. Yeah. Comply, man. It's just, and that's the thing that blows my mind on my Facebook is how many people just are so willing to comply with whatever they're told to do. This is, and I don't like to compare things to like Hitler and the, the Holocaust and things like this. But I mean, this is how people get rounded up. You know what I mean? It's just complying with everything. And I'm definitely not a go out there and fight and all of that. But I mean, at the same time, it's like, dude, you got to understand the importance of at least, I don't even know, because you talk about forefathers, but then people go back into that they were Satanists and there was a conspiracy with them. But at least what they presented to us was a nation that didn't just lay down and let the government walk all over them. But now we lay down and just let the government walk all over us.
Yeah, it's getting scary, man. And there will come a time when it's either stand up or, Well, was it during the Cold War? Some people would say better red than dead. Exactly.
They'd rather live on their knees than die on their feet. Like a generation of people with no kind of, I don't know. I mean, it's just like nowadays you're being conditioned to like hate your own country. And although I'm saying all of this, I love my country. I don't think there's anything wrong. If you're from France or you're from England, I hope that you love your nation as well. I hope that you don't hate where you are. And if you do, I hope you're able to go somewhere that you're happy. But, you should have pride in where you're from. But, I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, it could be. You hear whispers of, the whole Black Lives Matter movement being orchestrated by George Soros and all these people that don't really care about the issues that, Black Americans are facing. They're just stirring the pot.
Well, it's documented. I mean, George Soros has largely funded BLM. Absolutely. I mean, that's not a conspiracy.
And videos
either,
of white people handing out bricks and handing people money and telling them where to go throw them. Now, I know the pallet of bricks thing. There's a picture that got out a while back of a pallet of bricks that was near a protest. But then there was, and it could have been a crock of shit, but there was a perfectly logical explanation for why they were there. But then there are videos of like this little white guy handing out money and bricks and telling people where to go and what to smash and what to do. And then there's the white ex-cop that, or maybe he was a cop, but wearing all that gear, walking around smashing the windows out of that auto zone. It's like there are definitely people in there trying. And a lot of times what people don't realize is, half of the damn riots and the destruction and the graffiti that's perpetrated by white people. So, I mean, it's like there definitely seems to be people in the mix trying to make it worse. And use this, it's almost like a divide and conquer kind of tactic.
We were talking.
And again, remember, I'm speaking hypothetically, like how it could happen. I'm not saying these are the things I believe.
No, we were talking at work last night. The grocery store chain I work for, they're getting more and more publicly adamant about these leftist stances, and we're just bracing for when they're going to say, all right, well, if you don't have the COVID vaccine, you're not going to be allowed to work for the company, and people are going to have to choose between their livelihoods and getting a vaccine that who knows what.
Well, I'm pretty sure, and I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I mean, I think vaccinations are great. That's why we don't have polio anymore and smallpox and all of these things that used to kill our ancestors so easily. But at the same time, there's a difference between, I don't know, man. I mean, and on top of that, too, I mean, I talked to a friend who's in the medical field that said that they would advise not getting the COVID vaccination when it first comes out because they're rushing this thing out. And usually vaccinations and thing. And again, I'm not a medical professional, so if you are, please, no hard feelings. Please correct me in the comments. We're here to learn and discuss, So I mean, you tell me. But I was told these things take a while. I mean, the fact that they're just pretty much rushing this thing out, and as soon as they have a few successful human trials, they're like, all right, everybody get it. Yeah. Like, no, don't take it yet. And I mean, you've heard all over Facebook. I've seen, like, we live here in Virginia, and Governor Northam is basically saying like he's all for making it a mandatory vaccine. Like imagine that, a mandatory vaccine. And see, I can understand if it's one of those things where it's like, well, you can't, because like kids and vaccinations and stuff, there's certain things they can't do or places they can't go if they do vaccinations. But again, you're not forced to vaccinate your children. That's not something the government mandates you do or face criminal charges. Whereas with this, that seems to be the direction they're going. Get this vaccine or you're a criminal. And that's where I kind of draw the line. They're taking choice out of the equation. That's where, as at least what I interpret the American values to be, is that you have freedom. There are some things that might be required, but ultimately you do have a choice, like auto insurance. You don't have to have auto insurance, just don't drive. Get rides, ride the bus, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you have these choices and I know auto insurance is a bad example. It's not controlled by the government, but I'm saying but the government does say you have to have insurance if you're in a vehicle. So that is forced on you, but then you can get around that by not having a vehicle and taking public transportation. But when you take choice out of the equation, that's when freedom has been taken away. Without a choice, you don't have freedom.
We'll see what happens, man. But it's some ugly stuff coming down the pike. You better be ready.
So are you getting the vaccination?
No, I'm not.
Not at any point?
No. I mean, I hope I'm not forced to.
Well, it's like flu shots. Flu season gets really bad, but I mean, like, you have a choice to go get your flu shot or not, you know? I know a lot of people that don't like to get flu shots. Have you ever gotten a flu shot?
Not to my recollection. No.
Will you ever get a flu shot?
I'm not planning on it, no.
Like I know people that say that when they get the flu shot, it makes them. I mean, of course, I know they're putting a weakened or dying virus in your body, and your antibodies learn to fight it off and all of that. But still, I know people that have taken a flu shot and gotten really sick and been like, it ain't worth it for me, man. I mean, I take the shot to not get the flu. But in order to not get the flu, I get the flu. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, damn it, if I'm going to get the flu, I'm just going to get the flu. This shit sucks. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. So where do you see the vaccination? Do you see the COVID vaccinations being required?
Oh, yeah.
It would be interesting because I'm sure someone would say, well, you have to have vaccinations to do. But the thing is, it's like, all right, when you took the job at that grocery store, did they ask you what vaccinations you already had now?
No.
I don't think any job I've ever been with has been like, what kind of vaccinations do you have? Blah, 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 blah. So that's where it would be concerning if they're like, okay, well, to work here, you have to have the COVID vaccination. And then you'd be like, well, you weren't worried about if I had the smallpox vaccination or the polio vaccination or the flu shot. Why is this one so big? You know what I mean?
I mean, forget about working at the grocery store. Shoot, it'll be just being able to walk inside and shop. You'll have to have verification that you've had it.
I like to try and think rationally and think that, no, this isn't some big government plot and all of that. But I'm also staying vigilant or trying to with things like that because it definitely seems like there are some aspects of this pandemic that will give the powers to be more power than they had before.
Oh, yeah. It's getting harder and harder to ignore, man. I mean, they're coming out and saying it at this point. This is our agenda. This is what we're trying to do. This is the way we're moving.
And so do you think this guy and his organization was integral in the virus being released, or do you think that they're just taking advantage of the situation?
Oh, no, I think the powers that be definitely, it's not a coincidence or a naturally occurring phenomenon.
But wouldn't that mean collaboration between them and like China, where the first cases of this were found?
Oh, I'm sure they have.
Or do you think that perhaps China had nothing to do with it and they released it in China? I mean, I'm speaking again. This is all hypothetical, just talking based on this theory, trying to figure out what this theory is really digging into. But based on that, or your thoughts, do you think that that it was collaboration with the Chinese government, or do you think that the Chinese had nothing to do with it and it's just that's where they figured they would have ground zero being China has such a massive population?
Think of it kind of like Hydra. They have tentacles going into everything, man.
So you think that these behind the scenes people are basically just because we've heard rumors for many, many years of because I love conspiracy theories. Don't believe many of them, but I do really enjoy hearing them. I mean, it takes a creative mind to connect the dots with some of these things, and then you got some people that just everything is a conspiracy. But it's like we've heard that there are people that control the whole world, like already behind the scenes. Like our presidents and our world leaders are just puppets. They're not actually doing anything but what they're told. I mean, what do you believe that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like you look at the media, like all the newspapers and stations, all this stuff. It's essentially controlled at the end of the day by just 4 companies.
Yeah, mainstream media these days is a joke, and that goes for both conservative and liberal mainstream medias. I'm not singling out or picking a side on that. Just all mainstream medias are just crap right now. Very There are some out there that try to give you a non-biased opinion, but you can tell that a lot of these mainstream medias are bought and paid for. Yeah. The things that they push, the things they choose to cover, and the headlines. That's the thing about media, though. Media's never, and I'm not disparaging because I work in the media. I work for a radio station, so does JP here, and I've got many friends that are reporters for a local radio TV station that's a CBS affiliate. Up the road, but and I'm not disparaging what they do, but I've known people that quit because it's just like, I had one girl that she said it was making her miserable because when it came to what she could cover and what she could report on, anytime there was something positive or some straight information, absolutely not. You know what? Let's cover this.
Right.
And it just got depressing because basically with her, she was if it didn't mess with race relations or something that made people mad at their local government or just something that didn't stir the pot a little bit, they didn't want to hear about it. And you do have your few little local newses where it's Puffy the penguin got but it's just their main stories they want to be It's always been about the headlines and just getting you to click on the articles or to turn to their station or buy them. You go back in time. That's what it's all about. Headlines. It's all about what grabs your attention. It's not so much about giving you what's happening as it is just getting that, attention and being number one in what they do.
Yeah. Well, they're definitely pushing an agenda now, pal. And like I said, hold on tight. That's all I can say.
How do you see this playing out, though? Do you think they'll win if that's the case?
I hope not, but it's getting harder and harder to stop them, especially, as I said, with just the technology is catching up, and they're using that to their advantage. So,
well, then that's the thing, man. It's just our job to make sure that we don't vote for things or people that support things like cashless societies, and because it is weird that since childhood, and I'm not a very religious guy, but everyone associated the mark of the beast to be microchipping.
Right.
I remember being little and in church, that's what they were talking about, was the end times, which I'm pretty sure people have been talking about the world ending since the day Jesus supposedly ascended to heaven and was gone. Pretty much the next day, some guy's like, "Yo, Robert, I'm seeing signs. The world's about to end." Or at least since the book of Revelations came out, people have been drawing parallels to the end of the world. But, I remember being a kid in church and hearing that, this was getting towards the end. There's whispers of microchipping and putting these little chips under your skin that have your bank info, all of your personal information, just every aspect of your life is on this little chip that you'll be forced to have implanted in you. And that, you just scan your finger and that's how you pay for something or get access to something. But people don't realize while that seems super convenient, it also gives them the ability to remotely cut off your access to everything.
Yeah.
And I would hope that most people in the world would be more vigilant than to allow something like that to happen.
Yeah, man, and even if it's not microchips, right out the gate or anything, think about a national ID card you got to use everywhere, and it has your medical record, vaccination record, all this kind of stuff, and you can't go anywhere or do anything without something like that,
you've seen the slow steps. You have a social security number, you have a driver's license, you have ways already that they can, but when you give them the ability to cut off your lifeblood, which sadly is your money, your ability to buy food for your family, to get gas, to go to work, all of that. It's a little different when they can just cut that right off.
Yeah, it is.
That's how you get to the obey, or will end your life more or less.
That's the way things are moving, pal.
So where does this guy stand to benefit?
Just be in charge of the world economy.
Is he trying to set himself up to be the top?
This is just the direction they've been trying to move it in for a long time. Just control every inkling of everything.
As we wrap this up, can you please pull out your phone and read this guy's quote one more time?
Okay.
Give his name and his quote to wrap this up.
Let me pull it up. Pull it up and pull it out.
No.
He says, every country from the United States to China must participate, and every industry from oil and gas to tech must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism. That's Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum. He's the founder. And, yeah.
Now, that's a fully credible quote, right? That's
right
not like, because
there.
I see a lot on Facebook, people will take like a Will Smith picture and put some inspiring quote that they think he said, but really like Maya Angelou said it. So, we know that's what he said that. That's a credible quote.
That's right off of their website. Yeah, like I said, they don't make any. You can see speeches from this guy. He's not making any bones about it. It's not a secret plot. It's out there.
The wording of that is interesting, though, because he doesn't say abolishment of capitalism. He says reset or restart, whichever
they want to
use.
bastardize it.
But a reset of capitalism. So you don't think what he's saying is like everyone needs to get on board to help each other out, and then we need to, kind of jumpstart our capitalist system? You think he's saying we need to do away with it?
No, well, like I said, look at just watch his speeches, man. He straight up says we need to inject Marxism into the same philosophy the Soviets had and all these people. That
worked out so well for them.
Yeah. So
I've seen videos where like a guy from the former Soviet Union will go out to these people who are chanting that they want communism. Now we're not talking about socialism, like the Americans out there screaming for communism, and he's just like, number one, what communist nations? Where has that, And then like. He basically just explains, like, look, I'm from a former like iron fist communist nation, and I can tell you're sitting here complaining, but you just don't realize how much better it is here than it is there. Like, that is not the way to structure your government or your economics. It just does not work. And of course, they're still begging and pleading for something they've never experienced. But very interesting, man. Well. Yeah. A lot to think about. Just be vigilant, and like I said, keep in mind that we're just discussing this. It's not like I'm sitting here saying this is law, this is happening, but it definitely is suspicious. And at the same time, you don't have to believe every conspiracy theory out there. But again, stay vigilant. Think about things. Not everything can be taken at surface value in the world. Yeah. But again, we'll see patrons tomorrow, patreon.com/thepodcastingdead, and then we'll see Walking Dead fans back here on Monday for more Walking Dead What Ifs. But until then, I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
And with the Podcasting Dead, stay weird.